talks about in sales, you have the water pump, right? It's a well. It's a manual well. And so I pump. What do I see happen? Nothing. Why? Water's in the ground, a couple hundred feet in the ground. I keep pumping. What happens? Nothing. Then finally, after a while, I keep pumping, and what happens? Water starts to come out. And as long as I keep pumping, what happens? Water keeps coming out. The minute I stop pumping, what happens? The water goes back down to the ground.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
Who wants the magic pill? Who wants to know what the magic pill for 2025 is? Who wants the magic pill? Anybody?
That's a good question.
Not really.
I thought there wasn't a magic pill.
The answer is, there's not a magic pill. Right? Everybody wants a magic pill, but the fact is, there's not one. And I was getting this from multiple different places lately. I got this on the call yesterday, and the guy said, your people need to be reminded more than need to be taught. People need to be reminded more than need to be taught. And what do you think that means? Yes, everybody wants the new shiny object, the new squirrel. We used to call it squirrel on my mastermind groups. What is a squirrel? Anybody know what squirrel means? Why we call it a squirrel? Road, you see a squirrel in the road. They do what? They spaz and go everywhere, back and forth, and all of a sudden what happens? They get run their ass over. Because they're a squirrel going back and forth, they're not actually doing anything. And so the key part it talks about is like, hey, your people need to be reminded more so than need to be taught. And this is a great reminder. And so I was reverse engineering. Okay, look at 2025 so far. If there was one single secret to success in anything, specifically real estate though, what would you guys say the number one most important thing in real estate to be successful is?
Show up.
Consistency. What else say?
Christ.
Consistency. Now, we know the number one highest secret in success with anything is consistency, but what do you think the agents have the most problem with? Consistency. And I had 3 different coaches, 3 different groups. One was a friend of mine talking about this in the last week and a half, all about the same shit. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can't get people to show up to the office 5 days in a fucking row. Like, that's how hard consistency is for humans. Part of which is why I just post my stuff for you guys every day, who's on Facebook, friends with me. What do you see from me? The same shit over and 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 over. It may be 5 minutes different, but that's about it. And that's the secret to anything. But if I know that's the number one thing that's most important to success and to be the closest to a magic pill, then guess what I need to be my number one focus for 2025? This year. I have to hold myself accountable to this. Right? Some make the Tuesday meeting, some don't, right? Whatever it is. So the number one thing I can do to control the outcome, what do you think it is? If you got to pick one, what's the most important thing that you can do as an agent to be successful? What was it? Show up. That's it. Why? Half the battle is making sure I just show up. But what happens?
Sometimes you get lucky too.
But what stops people? Excuses and stories. It's bullshit things that come up, and everyone's got a reason that they could not come. But the difference is some continue to show up. Right? Over and over and over and over and over again. It comes down to my ability to stick with my commitment. And just a great reminder, I'm going to talk about this kind of an equation in a minute for you guys that's super important. And I'll do it right now. Let's give it early. So I want you guys to write this down. All right, here. A times C equals R. A times C equals R.
Ability and consistency equals results.
Action times consistency equals results. Now, why do you think it's the times instead of an addition? It's the compound effect of consistency. The secret to extracting the value and consistency has to be a compound effect. Meaning, so I can take all the action, but if I'm inconsistent, what happens in real estate? Nothing, right? You don't sell anything. Why? Because real estate's a long sales cycle. And so if I don't have that consistency in real estate, it's a multiple of 0. And I can have an action of 10, 2 days a week. But a consistency of 0, what's the mathematical answer? 0. And this is back to what I was talking about earlier, where business is just math. And so if I understand that, like, look, I have to have this consistency, and it's a multiplier. And the more consistent I am, guess what happens to the multiple? It goes up. Just like when you take the penny a day and double it, and double it, and double it, and double it, and double it. Nothing really happens in the beginning, then what happens at the end? Or towards the end. Massive increases once you have big numbers double. And you have to understand, you have to string this together for a long period of time to make sure that it works. Just like we gave the best example I've seen, I think it was a Zig Ziglar takeaway that talks about in sales. You have the water pump, right? It's a well. It's a manual well. And so I pump. What do I see happen? Nothing. Why? Water's in the ground, a couple hundred feet in the ground. I keep pumping. What happens? Nothing. Then finally, after a while, I keep pumping, then what happens? Water starts to come out. And as long as I keep pumping, what happens? Water keeps coming out. The minute I stop pumping, what happens? The water goes back down to the ground. It's the same exact thing with success from real estate. Ideally, is that what? I quit pumping, the water goes back, and then what do I have to do as an agent? I have to start all over. I have to start all over. And so this is what many of you do over and over again. You're having all this part and you're doing a multiple of 0 and you can't figure out why you're so frustrated because your results are 0. The missing factor there is the actual multiple of consistency. Okay? And so that's a key part here. Next thing, if you had to pick what the second thing, most important thing to do besides show up would be what?
Do the work.
Which should be what?
Make the dollar.
Calls. Why is that? Well, that's where the money's made, the fortune's in the follow-up, and I have to make sure I'm consistently making what? Calls. Prospecting to new leads, prospecting to leads that have my bucket, right? And prospect people that missed appointments, didn't show up, didn't sign, and also sign. It's very, very, very important to make sure I'm doing that. Third thing, most important to do, is close. And specifically what I mean there for that is what? What do you think that means there? Ask for the damn appointment. I have to be consistent in how I'm asking for the appointment. I can't just show up and be weak on the phone. And here's the crazy part. The more I'm consistent, the more confidence I have, the more certainty I have, the more I'm able to do what? Ask for the close with confidence. And this is so true both in buyer leads, both in seller leads, whatever it is. I have to make sure I have consistency in what I'm doing because that's the secret to success in anything in terms of life. I have a diet. I do really good in diet 3 days a week. I eat like shit. The rest of the week, what happens? Nothing. Ideally, you go backwards. I could do really, really good 3 days a week. Let's say 4 days a week. And the other days of the week, right? The other 3, I eat like shit, overeat. What happens? You can literally go backwards, right? Because you don't have that piece of consistency, which is the multiple that you need overall to do so. And so that's the key part there for you guys. Remember, overall. And then the last thing here I have on here, consistency, is make sure you have learn. Why is that in there, you think?
You're a student of the game.
You got to be a student of learning because it allows me to speed up the game and it speeds up my result. I watched this piece. I watched some of you guys will beat your brains in for 6 months, but you refuse to actually learn anything and study and work on your own at night, and then you wonder why you're burned out and frustrated. Maybe because you keep beating your head against the wall and you're not that good, and you're not as good as you think you are because you haven't watched Andy Elliott, Jordan Belfort, whoever it is that helps you, and you're not consistently learning, which is why you're missing out the rest of the equation. You guys with me on this? Like, you have to be a student to move fast in the business because it takes a long time to shorten that learning curve. And the learning curve could be 10 years for most people, right? Which is very, very, very important to look at overall with that. And I want you guys to write the one last thing that is important with consistency is the multiplier effect. There's a multiplier of consistency that allows you to be able to extract the result at a much higher level if you can string it together. The problem most humans right now is what? They can't do it. They're so fried in their brain that they can't string together a week of 5 days in a row at the office. Like, think about how low a standard that is. Like, I can't make 5 days to an office at 9 o'clock. It's pretty bad, right? If you had a Fortune 500 job, would you make it? If you had a job at Wendy's and didn't show up 5 days out of 5, what will happen? You're fired, but you expect to have success in real estate at 3 or 4 days a week. Just doesn't happen.